These are my dog ears, and I've got them connected here, and then I've paired them and twirled them. And I'm going to cut them to the same length here, and I've got these, so I'm just gonna butt connect them together. So black will go to black, and white will go to orange, like that. My name is Rick, and I have a sailboat on the San Francisco Bay. Join me as I refit sailing vessel Frog's Leap with an eye towards taking her to warmer places. I get to spend only a few days each month on the boat. That's why I call the channel Marina Queen. Sweet. All right. Perfect. Those are made connections. Alright, it's heat gun time. Heat gun, ladies and gentlemen. Amarillo by morning. Ladies and gentlemen. Let's see if we have water. Alright, here we go. We're going to fire up the water pressure pump. Oh yeah! Get out the air bubbles. Not bad. So now I get to be thinking about emptying those water tanks, putting new water in the tank, and what kind of chemicals should I use to kill anything that's living in the tank. And I imagine there are different kinds of chemicals, right? Probably depends on what your tank, the nature of your tank, right? If you have a plastic tank, it's probably different than if you have an aluminum tank like I do, or I know some people have tanks that are epoxied into the hull. I think a lot of it has to do with that, but I don't know anything about it. So yeah, if you know stuff about that, man, hit me in the comments, bro. Help me out with the YouTube algorithm. YouTube algorithm. It counts all that stuff as engagement. That's all engagement. Man, I am so stoked about having the freshwater system working again. It just made no sense for me to have that system in the back corner of the engine compartment where I couldn't access it. And by taking it out, I have a greater ability to get into more difficult areas of the engine compartment. This is a thing for me. All right, so I'm getting ready to shift gears from plumbing and move back into the engine compartment. And one of the things that I want to work on is the fuel line that runs from the tank to the Raycor primary filter. When I installed it, it had this weird curve in the fuel line. I'm going to loosen it from the Parker Raycor, and I'm going to just see if I can get that thing turned properly so it has a nice smooth turn to it, because it sticks out into the engine compartment a little bit, which means you're putting pressure on it every time you go in and out of the engine compartment, so it really needs to be flush against the wall. So we're going to try to work on that. Straightening this fuel line, I don't think it's going to be that tough. In fact, should only require one tool. So I'm sure you were all really impressed with my super cool metric wrench set, and I was getting ready to choose my weapon, and then I found out that the fitting that I'm trying to loosen is not metric. So I have a choice. I have heavier than needed tools that I can use to loosen this fuel line. One is this monster crescent wrench. One is this monster vice grip. And I don't want to damage the fitting, right? That'd be a problem. I did find another crescent wrench, smaller hand size, and it worked perfect. Perfect tool for this. And you can see how there's a little curve. It kind of comes off the wall as it dips low, but it's not under any kind of stress like it was before. Oh man, I thought I was getting great footage. The camera shot, it looked great, and I had to wrestle with that fuel hose. It was really quite stiff. You can see, actually, looking at it, it wants to come off of the bulkhead. At least the hose itself is under no pressure now. The way it was before, it was all tight, and you just knew that wasn't going to work. Now, in order to do that, I had to introduce some air into the fuel line. I'm going to have to bleed the system anyway, so this is as good a time as any, since I haven't done it yet, to swap out the secondary fuel filter. So this is the fuel filter that is on the engine itself. So I'm setting up to change out this filter, but this is where it is from the top. This is fuel in and this is fuel out. You can see the fuel filters right here. There's this ring up top. It's kind of got some edges to where you can grip it. And there is actually a tool you can use that Yanmar sells, but nobody uses it. Mostly what they do is they'll put a screwdriver like this on the groove and they'll tap that thing until it gives. Let's see if we can get it to give. Yep, it just moved. Okay, the ring came off. I'm going to keep some pressure on that bowl. Pretty sure it's full of fuel. And then we'll just drop it down. Okay. As I was moving away with the fuel, it knocked over the camera. So I got to do a little bit of cleanup, and then I'm going to get back to it. Well, there it is. You can really see that there's some like black on the filter element. There were two lengths of 5/8 inch hose that were connected to the engine and made this area super cramped. In addition, we had more of these water lines, obviously. So this was a very hard place to get into. Check it out. I'm just pulling on it. Oh, it just comes right out. Definitely had some dark in there. Hard to say what that's all about. The old one? The new one. Yes, yes. So fresh and so clean. And this one was bought for the boat in, it's back here. Right there. See, it was bought for the boat in 2001. 2001. These things were going for $4.05 each. Whoa, that's awesome. I don't even know what they go for now. I haven't bought any. There were 3 on the boat. Now there's 2 because I'm using that one. Yeah, so these are the parts you're left with. And any parts that couldn't go through the filter are going to be in this bowl. So we have to pour the bowl out. There were some chunks of stuff. This should be clean, you know. That other filter doesn't let anything past 10 microns in. This is, I think, clearly deferred maintenance. So I'm not going to make any effort to fill this. Like, you can fill it halfway or whatever, and it'll but I'm not going to make it. I have some clean diesel, but I am going to I have an electric fuel pump, so I'm just gonna let the fuel pump do the work and fill this stuff up for me. Well, that secondary fuel filter goes back together in the reverse order that I took it apart. Pretty much identical process, with the exception that there's the potential for fewer fireworks. But right now I have air bubbles in the fuel system near the primary fuel filter where I changed the way that hose from the tank was coming in, and then also now at the secondary filter. So I've got to bleed the system. So I'm going to use my electric fuel pump to bleed the system. Since the air bubbles are furthest along at the secondary fuel filter, the one that I just changed, that's the only place I'm going to bleed at. I'm going to force all the fuel up to that point, so I get all the air bubbles out at one point. Well, the drawback of this method is really only one. When the starter circuit is on, it emits a loud, high-pitched tone, which is annoying. So I put in my earplugs for this. When you bleed the diesel lines, the only way to know if you did an effective job is to run the diesel. Let's see how she runs. Yeah, I started her up and ran her for about a half an hour. And in the beginning, there was a little bit of roughness that I'd never heard before. And it went away after a time. I think it must be little tiny bits of air. And I don't know how much air it takes to affect a diesel. I know they're sensitive to air, but I don't know scientifically how much air is too much. I believe I passed some air. One of these where if there's any air, you're going to hear it. It may not kill the engine, but I mean, it was really visible. It looked like I had gotten all of the air out. It was coming out as a steady flow at the top of that filter. Well, I also think that there's like little tiny little bits of air, little pockets of air that are connected to these filament hairs in the filter. So when you put in a new filter, I think there's some of that maybe. I mean, it could be anything. I'm shooting in the dark here, man. New episode every Sunday. I'm not as pink as you confused I am.